Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. So I've got an interesting article here from the Center for a Stateless Society. The article written by a friend of mine, Thomas Knapp. And if you get a chance, Tom Knapp does a podcast generally every Friday. Sometimes it comes out on Thursday or Saturday, called the Knapp Stir. That's Knappstir, Knapp Stir. The name originated from his website, Napster, which is KNAPPSTER.blogspot.com. And this article he wrote for the Center for a Stateless Society. But I wanted to mention his podcast real quick because he's actually the person that sort of gave me the inspiration for doing a weekly AMA. He does his own weekly AMA, and that's basically what his podcast focuses on, is his AMA. And I mention his podcast because I'm the sponsor of his podcast. So the more listeners he gets, the wider my message winds up going. And, hopefully more people will wind up listening to both podcasts. His is somewhere between like 15, 20 minutes. Very good podcast. Not just because, I'm not just saying that because I'm the sponsor. I'm saying it because it's a good podcast. That's why I'm sponsoring. So the article here from Tom Knapp is titled, "Police Should Be On, Not Behind Cameras." And but before I get into the article, let me just sort of, preface by saying that, there's been a lot of debate about police having body-mounted cameras. The White House has even gone as far as to say that they want to invest some astronomical amount of money astronomical to me, nowhere near astronomical to them. It's pocket change for them. But I say that, in Washington, D.C., a couple $100 million is not an astronomical amount of money. But anyway, Barack Obama has said that he wants to have Congress or the Treasury, somebody somewhere in Washington is using money that was stolen from you, and he wants to have some of that go towards putting body-mounted cameras on police officers across the country. So Tom Knapp wrote this article in response to that. He says, "Police body cameras are all the rage lately. Al Sharpton wants them used to monitor the activities of cops. Ann Coulter wants them to shut down people like Al Sharpton. The White House wants them because, well, they're a way to look both tough on police violence and tough on crime by spending $263 million on new law enforcement technology. When Al Sharpton, Ann Coulter, and the President of the United States agree on anything, my immediate visceral reaction is skepticism. In this case, the known facts support that skepticism. It is exceedingly unlikely that widespread use of police body cameras would reduce the incidence or severity of unjustified police violence. We've already seen the results of numerous technology solutions to that problem." Now, let me just say before I continue here that there are also cases such as, I forget the town in California, I think Rialto, where they introduced police body cameras, and the reports of violence from cops went down. The number of complaints about cops wound up going down, in both cases by very, drastic numbers, somewhere like, in the 60 to 80% range. But what you wind up having is a situation in which, even things such as the Eric Garner killing, where it was caught on tape, but yet you did not have the police officer wind up face any legal problems. Of course, now the commissioner of the New York Police Department is saying there's going to be an internal investigation. But of course, they could have already concluded their internal investigation because that event happened in July. So you have cases where things are caught on tape, but there's still no punishment for the police officers. You've got the situation such as, where was it? UC Davis during the Occupy protest, where you had college students that were sitting down on a sidewalk, and the police guy just came by and pepper sprayed everybody, and that was caught on tape. No punishment for him. He actually wound up getting a very large settlement because of pain and suffering that was caused by his actions being caught on tape and people making fun of him and mocking him. So, on the one hand, I can understand the rationale of, people should film cops and cops should have body cameras. At the same time, I see the arguments against putting body cameras on cops, and Tom will get into that in just a minute here. The article continues. It says the introduction of mace and tasers to police weapon inventories encouraged a hair-trigger attitude towards encounters with suspects being law enforcement slang for anyone who is not a cop. Their supposed non-lethality made it safer to substitute violent action for peaceful talk. The introduction of military weaponry and vehicles to policing hasn't produced a de-escalation either. Quite the opposite, in fact. Now we get to watch small-town police departments stage frequent reenactments of the Nazi occupation of Paris in towns across America. And police car dash cams, that's obviously the most direct comparison. But the dash cam always seems to malfunction, or the police department mysteriously loses its output when a credible claim of police abuse behavior arises. On the other hand, it's absolutely certain that widespread use of body cameras by police would increase the scope and efficacy of an increasingly authoritarian surveillance state. The White House proposal calls for an initial rollout of 50,000 cameras. Note, it's the initial rollout of 50,000 cameras. Doesn't say how many the maximum amount will ever be. Tom Knapp writes, does anyone doubt that the output of those cameras would be kept, copied, cross-referenced, and analyzed against law enforcement databases, including but not limited to facial recognition databases on a continuing basis? Assuming that a camera attaches to a particular officer with an 8-hour shift, rather than being passed around at shift change for 24 continuous hours of use, that's 400,000 hours per day of random warrantless searches to be continuously mined for probable cause to investigate and arrest people. Even George Orwell did not go so far as to have 1984's thought police carry portable cameras around everywhere they went. Video technology is certainly part of the solution to police violence, but the solution should remain in the hands of regular people, not the state. More and more of us every day come into possession of the ability to record video on the spot while instantly porting it to internet storage so that it cannot be destroyed at the scene or tampered with after the fact. Cops need to be on cameras they don't control. There's a little bit more from this article, plus more, when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Hi, I'm Darryl W. Perry, and I need your help to take Peace, Love, Liberty Radio on the road. In the spirit of Motorhome Diaries and Liberty on Tour, I intend to take the message of peace, love, and liberty on the road. I intend to leave New Hampshire at the conclusion of the New Hampshire Liberty Forum and return at the beginning of PorcFest. During the 104-day trip, I'll be visiting at least 10 cities across the country, speaking to people about the ideas of peace, love, and liberty, while continuing to produce daily Liberty media. Pensacola, Florida, Austin, Texas, Sedona, Arizona, and Denver, Colorado are already on the map. If you have a college group, a local Liberty on the Rocks, or other Liberty meetup that you'd like me to visit, you can possibly add your event to my calendar. To find out more about the tour or to donate, visit tour.fppradio.com. That's tour.fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by joining the FANS program. Fans are friends, allies, and Numery supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the FANS program for as little as $3 per month or any amount of Bitcoin per month, thanks to the recurring payment options provided by Coinbase. To learn more or to join the FANS program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's FANS.fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. Now, the holidays are coming up. Regardless of which holiday it is that you celebrate, there's holidays that are coming up. You can't deny that fact. And most people buy gifts for one another around the holidays. And, well, when you do that, let me ask you to start your shopping experience at shop.fppradio.com. There's a payment, or not a payment, there's a shopping iframe from Amazon that is built directly into that page. So you don't have to go anywhere other than shop.fppradio.com, and you can shop at Amazon. And any purchase you make winds up helping me out a little bit because Amazon sends a little bit of the money that you send to them to me. Basically, think of it as a finder's fee. There are other affiliates that I have that are on the page, including Amagi Metals. There's Virgin Mobile if you're looking for cell phone service. There's ExpressCoin and Coinbase for Bitcoin related services. Buying, selling, merchant services, etc. All that and more at shop.fppradio.com. And none of those charge you any more money than what you would normally pay if you go directly to their sites. I just wind up basically getting a finder's fee, so it helps me out. shop.fppradio.com. So continuing with the article from Tom Knapp over at the Center for a Stateless Society, he writes, but part of the solution is just part of the solution. Even when cameras catch violent, abusive, criminal cops in action, as for example when business security cameras filmed Fullerton, California police officers Manuel Ramos and Jay Cicinelli beating homeless man Kelly Thomas to death in 2011, it's incredibly hard to get prosecutions and even harder to get convictions. Ubiquitous video monitoring of state actors by regular people is the start, but the only real way to guarantee an end to police violence is to bring an end to the state law enforcement. In fact, an end to the state itself. And I can't really add anything to the conclusion there, because as long as you have a state, you will have state-run law enforcement. And yes, I know if you go back in history long enough, then there weren't, state-run law enforcement. It really wasn't until the last couple hundred years, but being able to proceed in society in sort of what a lot of people see as a regressive manner of we need to get beyond having this, so we need to go back to how things were before. A lot of people see that as taking steps backwards, not taking steps forward. A lot of people don't really see that cops are essentially the king's men. A lot of people don't see that because in the U.S. we don't have a king. We have a president. The president gets elected. But, it's essentially the same thing. Not that Obama is a king with, monarchy-type powers, but that the state is the same regardless of the type of government that exists within that state. So, as long as there is a coercive state, there will be coercive law enforcement. So we need to get rid of the coercive state. Now, I've got a couple of articles that really sort of show some of the... I don't really know. Hypocrisy, I think, might be the best word to use here, of what happens when police either don't do violence or when they're caught on camera doing something that was not part of their job. So the first story, actually both of these come from the freethoughtproject.com. The first one is about a cop that was fired for not using violence to resolve a situation. Yes, you heard that right. The cop was fired because he wasn't violent in resolving a situation. The article begins, a 20-year veteran of the CSU Monterey Bay Police Force, that's Cal State University, Monterey Bay, was given a notice of termination this week for choosing not to immediately resort to violent escalation during a confrontation with a suicidal student. The unidentified officer was the first one on the scene when responding to an incident involving a suicidal college student in the CSU MB dorm room in February. The officer showed a heartening level of restraint when dealing with the student who was in his room with a knife and hammer and was threatening to light himself on fire. The police chief, Edmundo Rodriguez, said, "He was clearly a danger to himself and he was in crisis. We were trying to keep him from accessing the weapons or leave to get him medical attention." Instead of immediately resorting to violence, the officer was talking the student down and de-escalating the situation. The officer was successful in calming the student down and was going to get him a glass of water when the Marina police showed up and immediately began to tase the student. The campus officer refused to tase the student and did not perceive him to be a threat. Subsequently, Rodriguez's department later issued a failure to act complaint against the campus officer, accusing him of not engaging in a highly agitated situation. The student's father said, "It defies logic and is extremely disappointing that at a time when law enforcement is under fire for using more force than necessary, an officer is being terminated for attempting to use civilized methods to resolve a situation." The union president, Jeff Solomon, said, "Our officer did not believe he was a threat at all. The other officer started yelling and screaming to get down, tased him multiple times, and from what we understood, told the university officer to tase him again." The officer has been on paid leave since April, according to his attorney, who said she will now file a lawsuit against the university. His attorney, Kathleen Storm, said, "We believe the officer, in this case, exercised restraint and good judgment in not tasing a student that was suffering from mental health issues." This incident, the article writes, highlights the sick and twisted state of today's police force. Darren Wilson shot and killed an unarmed teenager and was not fired. Officer Daniel Pantaleo of the New York Police Department placed Eric Garner in a chokehold, a maneuver which has been prohibited by the department since 1993, which killed the man. The entire incident was caught on video, and Pantaleo was not fired. The campus officer chose to use nonviolence to try and resolve a situation instead of killing or maiming a person, and he is being fired for it. So just think about that for a second. You've got somebody who did not immediately jump to violence, who is being terminated. He's lost his job for not being violent enough. I've got another story about what happens when a police officer gets filmed doing something that's not part of her job. You'll find out when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davi Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, "We aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience." Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com, all major bookstores, and now available as an audiobook. Hi, I'm Darryl W. Perry, and I need your help to take Peace, Love, Liberty Radio on the road. In the spirit of Motorhome Diaries and Liberty on Tour, I intend to take the message of peace, love, and liberty on the road. I intend to leave New Hampshire at the conclusion of the New Hampshire Liberty Forum and return at the beginning of PorkFest. During the 104-day trip, I'll be visiting at least 10 cities across the country, speaking to people about the ideas of peace, love, and liberty, while continuing to produce daily Liberty media. Pensacola, Florida, Austin, Texas, Sedona, Arizona, and Denver, Colorado are already on the map. If you have a college group, a local Liberty on the Rocks, or other Liberty meetup that you'd like me to visit, you can possibly add your event to my calendar. To find out more about the tour or to donate, visit tour.fppradio.com. That's tour.fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. So I've got another article here from the Free Thought Project. They do a tremendous job of finding interesting stories from across the country. This one involves a police officer from Memphis, Tennessee, who was caught on camera doing something that I would say is nowhere near illegal. In fact, she's not being charged with a crime. She's just losing her job. And it's because she did something off duty. And again, it's not something that is illegal, but she's still losing her job. The title of the article is, "If you're a cop, you can kill someone on camera and you'll be fine. Act in a rap video and you're out of here." Officer Paris Glass was suspended from the Memphis Police Department after an anonymous informant accused her of acting in a hip-hop music video. The informant passed on a copy of the music video to the police department, and the video has since been removed from YouTube. According to the police department, Officer Glass is now under official investigation for involvement in gang activity and could risk losing her job if investigators determine that she did in fact appear in the video. The music video in question was for the song "What's Up, Bitch" by local rapper P. London, which features a number of other artists and dozens of extras. Few details about the video are actually available now that it was taken down from YouTube. However, the news clip, and they do link to a news clip in this article, a news clip shows a few different scenes where people cast in the video are wearing bandanas over their face and participating in staged kidnappings. However, fictional scenes of crimes are depicted in television shows, movies, and music videos all the time. That doesn't mean that the actors are actually criminals. Nonetheless, the Memphis Police Department is now suspecting Glass of being a spy for the Bloods and believes that she may have been tipping off gang members about inside police information during her 7 years working at the department. The police department seems to be taking this issue far more seriously than the rampant police brutality and abuse of authority that is allowed to go unchecked. There is no clear time frame for the length of Glass's suspension or if the police will attempt to file any criminal charges against her. The article says, "Do not misinterpret this article for making the assertion that Glass is innocent. She may very well be guilty of criminal activity. However, it is important to point out she is facing disciplinary action for a non-crime. Police in America can kill people on video and not face any disciplinary actions. This ridiculously backward scenario is indicative of a corrupt and failed police state." Now, I will say that based on English common law, which is what the American judicial system is supposedly based on, with the sole exception of the state of Louisiana, which is under Napoleonic common law. But based on the American, what most people think of as the American justice system, you are presumed innocent until found guilty in a court of law. So I will go as far as to say that the police officer here has been found guilty of nothing. So as far as I'm concerned, she is innocent until she is found guilty in a court of law. And I don't think that appearing in a music video should be a crime. Now, if they do determine that, somehow she was connected to gang activity, I still don't think that that necessarily should be a crime because free association. Now, if she's actually done something that has harmed someone, if they can prove that she has done something to harm someone, then yes, she should be found guilty and convicted and then lose her job. But until she is found to have actually caused harm to anyone, then I will say that she isn't guilty of anything. So hopefully they'll wind up concluding their investigation and realize that she did nothing wrong, that just being in a music video is not illegal. She should not lose her job. But again, this is, the weird police state USSA, where you have police officers like the cop in California that loses his job for not resorting to violence immediately. You've got this lady in Tennessee that might lose her job because she was in some guy's music video. You've got other police officers that, they wind up trying to do the right thing and they get punished. But yet you've got police officers like the guy in New York, Daniel Pantaleo, that is caught on film choking someone to death, and he goes unpunished. Now, of course, I know that the police commissioner is saying, we'll investigate. It might take us 4 months, but we'll investigate. No, I have to agree with Chris Rock on this one. It doesn't take 3 or 4 months to figure out if somebody killed somebody. It takes that long to come up with a reason of how it's not murder. And at the very least, it's homicide. And the slight difference there is that homicide is just the taking of another person's life. Whether justified or not, it's still homicide. If it's not justified, then it's murder. Some people might say, well, no, it has to be premeditated for it to be murder. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But in my book, any unjustified killing of another human being is murder. Doesn't matter if you planned it out for days or if it happened on the spot. If it's not justified, it's murder. But, of course, you've got police officers doing that all over the country. We don't even know how many murders there are or homicides there are by police departments because they don't really keep those figures. They're not required to actually report those numbers. They say, well, they're self-reporting, blah, blah, blah. But yet once that number winds up going to the FBI or the Department of Justice, they don't calculate the numbers of anything other than what they consider justifiable homicides, which means the killing of someone that was in the commission, in the midst of the commission of a felony. So, for instance, the Eric Garner situation, that probably will never even end up as a statistic because he was not committing a felony when he was murdered. And even the coroner in New York City ruled it a homicide. But yet he was, not acquitted. Probably not even going to lose his job. He might wind up with one of these, paid vacations. I mean, a paid administrative leave. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Remember, AMA every Wednesday. You can send those questions, AMA@fppradio.com.